Oh, I better turn off the radio. Hold on. Oh, it's nice being over here. Go quiet. It's nice being over here because the heater's over there. Anyway, I thought I would. I was going to do this off camera, but it's so. I always find it so nice to look underneath the covers and, you know, underneath the plastic or whatever on these things. It's a shame that you wouldn't join me in it. So here we are. Neck is already off. I'm taking all the bits off. The neck is here, and it's a, you know, it is a nice quality, big chunky thing. No actual shim. A little bit of paint or something left over, but it's not a shim. So quite a flat radius vintage neck, almost no cutaway there, but I'm going to have fun reshaping this at some point in time. And I think, as I mentioned before, what I've got in its place is this Squier neck, which is a fair bit thinner. Again, it's not deadly thin, and it's also quite a flat radius, which I'll check out in a bit more detail in a minute. But right now I'm just looking at, blimey, I don't think I've got the hands for it in this cold. I'm just basically taking everything off this this here telly thing, because even though it plays, I'm still going to want to check everything out, replace some things, and also what I want to do is shield it as well, so everything's got to come off. Ow! Oh, my fingers are cold and they hurt. Right, so there's going to be a bit of what do we call it, chopping off of things, cutting of wires and stuff for now. So we've got the single coil neck pickup here, which is, again, it was a bit low compared to the bridge certainly, so in a future incarnation I might want a bit more spring under there, but it actually didn't sound bad tone wise. Let's get the magnet to help us out. It's not magnetic, how strange. Yeah, nice tone, perhaps just could do with being a bit more powerful, or a bit better balanced anyway with the bridge. So it's got some springs. So it's a very simple arrangement, these things. You've just got a cutout, a route, a hole, and a spring, and a screw, bolt thing. So there we have it, ceramic magnet neck pickup. Got the quality inspection sticker here, you know, from the original Indian factory, which I'm not going to really do anything with. I will take out all of these little saddles, because I want to take all of this apart, clean it, and, you know, possibly reconsider. Good thing about these sort of saddles is Ed had already replaced them, so these are his choice, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with them quality wise. They're perfectly good, and the fact that they're individual ones as well is a really good move. So, you know, each string can be intonated properly. I'm just taking them off so I can kind of clean up the plate more than anything, and also I like to get everything completely off the body. So what I'll do, probably for now, rather than risk blowing up the electrics in the shed, which is what I've been doing recently every time I go anywhere near the soldering iron, I will cut the connectors for the earth. Well, the earth is under the bridge, but I'll cut the pickup connections, and we'll just resolder them and tidy that up when we come to put it back together again, or depending if we're going to replace the pickups with something else. So again, I'm using this thing here, the hand screwdriver, rather than the mechanical one, even though it's one of those repetitive millions of turns little jobs you think that ideally you know, a battery powered thing would be good for. Obviously it can't quite get into that place over the flat body, and you end up, if you're not careful, you can end up scuffing the finish and damaging it. So boring though it is, especially with cold hands, doing it by hand is the only real option. Now this really is a surprisingly good start point. I mean, this is a very solid hardwood, full thickness telly body, and to be honest, you'd have to go some way to find one of these online. I mean, say even the recent I sold recently a standard series telly body with some other kind. I can't remember now what the neck was on it. Oh blimey, I'm losing my mind. Anyway, it was a really nice body, but I don't think it was even as solid as this one actually. This is a it's a really weighty thing, as were a lot of these Indian made tellies and strats. Okay, so I've got these great big chunky base plate screws here, and then I've got the control plate to take off. Now this is a body that absolutely doesn't need any counterweighting like some of the guitars that I've recently done. This is quite chunky enough, so what I'm looking to do with this is just clean up the body, give it a good old clean, and then whoops, do all the shielding. If there isn't, well, there isn't any, it's just paint. So do all the shielding and then basically choose hardware, make decisions about hardware, and then put it all back together again. Maybe replace the pots and the wires, and we should be alright. The main work on this guitar is, in a way, difficult. The hardest bit on this guitar is going to be reshaping the neck, because at the moment it's okay, but it's a little bit bland. Okay, so I'm freezing. So there we have it. It would be nice if these things were what do you call it? I wish they were clipped together things. It would be so cool. So just for ease of not even having to think about it, I'm going to mark these things. That's the 1 is 1 and the 2 is 2, and we've got loads of room on them, so I'm going to basically just snip them in between these marks for now, because as I said, I don't want to be messing around cutting my own power off. I've done more than enough of that. So this just gives me a sort of a quick lazy get out. And I'll cut near the bottom of my thing, obviously, so I know which is which and where's where. Okay, and I can then, I'll put these in a little bag because they're pretty delicate all round these things, and it's too easy to knock off the little wires, make these things work. And I've sadly done it before with the occasional pick up single coil. Actually, they quite seem to be very, very delicate. This one's a little bit more robust, so I can afford to just place that in there for the time being. And we've got the control panel going to one of these horrible old style, I just hate these, the old style clip-on jack plugs. I mean, amazingly this one is intact, but so maybe it will hold, but if not, I've got some spare, or I've got a spare screw-in replacement, which I find, sorry about this, I find those are much better, much easier to use, affair. Just while I'm at it, let's go over this. Something something I was going to do today. Okay, is this spinning round? It is. This is difficult because I can't get into there without pulling this out. What I don't want to do is spin. I don't want this to turn while I'm trying to do it. And I've got a special tool for this. The problem is I can't get the pliers in around the side of that tool. But I think this is coming off. Right. Hurrah. Yeah, it is. It's one of those funny little clipped in. How they ever got those to work more than once, I'll never know, because they bend and tear the wood and out it comes. Anyway, there's my I'll pull it out shortly, but there's my control business, and in fact I'll just pull this out now because I hate them so much. Out you come. Pliers. Thank you. history. I'll put it in there for now, but I mean, it's just what a primitive thing. You know, drag this through until it claws its way into the side of the hole, and then everything will be fine for all those years of play. I don't think so. Okay, so that's it in components. Oh, the thing I didn't test, that I now need to test, of course, is how does this fit? Not precisely. So we may have a little bit of modification to do. And if I just get my calipers to measure, looks good, but obviously there's a difference here in heel width. Yeah, you can see it actually. So we are kind of 55.7 at the end here, and we are a little bit more, probably 58. Sorry, not 55.7 to 56.8. So it's about a millimeters difference, and that's okay because I think we can just sand that. I would go with sanding that down personally, rather than any other kind of cut. I mean, they both appear to have a similar sort of radius, and I suspect it's, I don't know, it might even be flatter than 12, but yep, blimey. Funny sort of choice. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a Telecaster man, so I don't know what tellies usually do, but this is very close to 16. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's 16. Wow. I'm going to put a sticker on here in case I forget that in my amazement. So if I were ever to use that again, I'd probably 16-inch radius. I'd probably want to re-radius that. The difficulty of reusing that one is the headstock shape is kind of limiting. Let me just check one thing. I don't think it's 15. Actually, you know what? It is 15. Yeah. God, it's so close. Yeah, I'd say it's 15 actually. Yeah, the difficulty of trying to reuse the vintage headstock in this shape is there's not a lot you can get out of it. Actually, I could be wrong. Just looking at this right now, there is potentially just about enough. Now that's quite good because it gives me options. I mean, I can, if I can get a decent shape out of it, let's just have a quick look. Actually, you know what? I think I wasn't expecting this. It's a bit of an assumption here, and you know what they say about assumptions, but anyway, I've always thought that these vintage headstocks didn't allow you to get a Telecaster shape out of it, but and that's actually because I've seen people do loads of really bad vintage to Telecaster conversions, which never look like Telecasters at the end. However, my beady eye tells me that this may not be the truth. And I've got that piece of crap old tape here that's getting clagged up. Yeah, so a little bit of a quick bit of a copy going on. I don't like to quite like not to use a printout template from the internet, partly because I like it to have a bit of hand-drawn organic whatever about it. I like it changing as long as it looks nice, and I'd rather it was a little bit different from the actual, photographic perfect direct copy. I prefer it if it's a little different, and certainly the Strat headstocks that I've been shaping are different from a proper Strat, which is good. Okay, so I'm sort of just lining up. Now, obviously, this isn't directly this isn't flat against flat, so I'm sort of judging or guessing this line here a little bit, and missing completely like that, as you saw. Yeah, I think this is where this is where people lose it. So they lose it on this little edge here, and that technically needs to be a little bit more of a bulge than it can be. And if you were to bring this in a little bit further to try and get that bulge out of it, you might sort of get there. It's not massively brilliant. I'm just trying to do it by eye. We want to go in along here, in a little bit, out, because it has a little flare out at this point to that furthest edge it can go. And if I draw it, it could be something like that, out to there, along to there, there to there. Okay, I'm going to draw a little bit of, fill in this bit here, and I'm going to sort of stare at this for a while to see whether this is doable or not, and whether the end result is in any way appealing to the eye. Nothing to lose, basically. You'd never get a Strat, you wouldn't get a decent Strat headstock out of this Encore headstock, but this Encore headstock is used in both their Strats and their Tellies, so at least they appear to have given us the possibility of getting a half decent Telly kind of facsimile out of it. So there's the shape. It's very svelte. I'm just looking at the two side by side. That one comes in a little bit. That one goes out a little bit. It's kind of, it hasn't got quite as big a bulge, and actually what there really is on the Telly is there's a slight kind of curve inwards, a bit more than we've got here, that comes to there, that allows that bulge to look like something. Now, to be honest, we've got as much room as we want on this side of the headstock, I mean on this part of the headstock, so I can carve away to my heart's content if it accentuates that sort of shape, which now looks very slender and quite graceful. And from a point of view of a player, is that a Telly? If it is, we've got quite a good start point. We've got the practically untouched frets. Yeah, these don't even need replacing. Flat fingerboard, the right heel width. We're on the wrong size holes, but we can take care of that with a drill out. In fact, the simplest way to do that is just to mark the darn thing up in one go. I just like to centre these holes by eye, because that's pretty much all we're going to do, is push the drill in by eye and overcut the holes. So we're closer with this one than we are with the other one. And actually what would be quite good is I could take longer to reconsider this one. But like I said, this is a 15 radius. So I'm going to make another note of that because we covered it up. Yikes. And this one, I don't really want to refret, but this one is smaller, thinner wire with some wear on it, and I would like to refret this, but then this would give, if I refret this one, it gives me the opportunity to re-radius it, to re-thin it and re-radius it, so I get to have some more fun with this. I mean, nicer, obviously it's maple neck, nicer looking, but I can do them either simultaneously or whatever. To fit this, if I re-radius this, and if I'm going to make it alongside reshaping this one for the same guitar, then obviously what I have to do, which is a little bit of an inaccuracy here, what I have to do is I have to cut this one down by 1 millimeter in its width at the heel department, which isn't such a bad thing to do. Of course, what it will do is limit me to this kind of Indian-made, probably Indian-made guitar. Okay, I'm just looking at this, is still a little bit flared at that end, so I'm going to slim it down. It doesn't have quite the same end as a Tele, because the Tele is a little bit blunter on top than this is going to end up being, but I think that's not a bad stab at it for fun. And I do that just because otherwise I'm not going to use this neck for anything else because of that shape. I mean, it's not a very attractive shape. So there we go, we've got ourselves another little mini thing on the go. Yeah, I just haven't checked this one. So previous one was 15. Are all Telecasters 15, or have I just not noticed something? I'm going to do a bit of research after this. Wow, this is a bit of both. Well, it's not 20, is it? No, definitely not that. But this is more like, it's more than 16. Wow, I don't have it. I haven't got a 16, 12, 10. No, I don't. I think this is about 18. If I'm absolutely honest, there's a tiny bit of a gap. So the fingerboard is actually flatter than this 16, but it's not as flat as a 20 because that's lifting just fractionally at the edges, but it's nearer 20 than it is 16. So, well, okay, equidistant. Call it 18. Weird. That's not very Fendery, is it? And I bet it won't tell. I can't believe, if I go searching for this, I cannot believe it's going to tell me that Squier Telecasters of any vintage have an 18-inch radius. I do not believe it, but that's what the evidence of my eyes are saying. Anyway, okay, I'm going to need to do a bit of a tidy up, but so what we've discovered is we need to take a millimetre, we need to lose a millimetre in a sort of even-handed fashion to get this neck to fit. And it's got to be precise and can't be kind of off one side and not the other. It has to be, yeah, really evenly done. I have to think of the most reliable way to do it such that it doesn't just chamfer it off. I mean, we've got the heel obviously has a natural taper to it coming this way, so we're going to have to work with that taper, but take a millimetre off all of that taper. So I need to write on here, sand off. And I think we need 0.5 on either side, 0.5 millimetre either side of the heel. And then there's my knackered fingernails, courtesy of pulling strings. And then a bit of research on this. I mean, the other thing by the way, I don't like about this this particular. Somebody's actually put a little shim in here, I think, to keep this nut from moving, which is understandable. Was it me? It could have been me, actually. The other thing I don't like so much about this is that the fingerboard is not smooth, and the lacquer is very thin, so you've got the grain of the fingerboard is coming through the very thin lacquer, and it doesn't have, if you're going to have maple, why not have the sort of feel of maple that we all know and love, which is, to be fair, it's a bit of a more stickier feel on the fingerboard than this. This is kind of in between. It doesn't quite know what it is, so if I'm going to reshape this, I think what I'm also going to do then is re-lacquer it and then put some frets in. I don't know what the condition of the slots are in here, so that would change things. But I mean, it's playable, isn't it? But I suppose the way to think about this is probably to do the, if I'm going to commit it to this, because I think the look of this would be really nice. I mean, I know I've got another neck. I think that would suit really well. So if I'm going to commit this neck first and foremost to that guitar, which I think is probably worth doing, then I need to take off that 0.5 millimeter either side on the sanding front. If I'm going to commit it, then to start getting into reshaping this and this is a different matter altogether. The question for me is, would it play as is, even with these kind of quite low profile frets, which some people really like. I'm not, it's a personal preference to me, but you know, they aren't so bad that they won't play. So maybe the thing is to not do all the changes at once and to try this out in its, do the minimum to it. So which is first and foremost, slim down the neck, fill the holes, relocate it in there, and go from there. And if I like it, and if it looks good, then start thinking about reshaping it. Okay, so that's where I've arrived with that one. I'm going to hang up these pieces and put away the components to a later point when I'm ready to get stuck into them, because there's a few more things to take apart. One of the things I'm going to do on tape isn't the right way to say it, because it isn't tape. One of the things I'm going to do on video, no, on video, on direct-to-disc video, is I'm going to do set the floating tremolo on Ed's vintage brand AV, no, not AV, V6 Stratocaster style guitar, S style, if we're allowed to even vaguely say that. Now, what's going to be quite interesting, I'm going to switch off and restart in a minute, but that's quite an interesting thing, because I learned how to do this a while back, and it's one of these things that I realised that after a long time I had been doing but not understanding. So it's time today was time I understood what the hell was going on. So I made it my business to learn what was going on, or make sense of what was going on, and in doing so decided that I needed to explain it as well. So I'm going to do that in the next video. Okay, so I'll see you shortly. Oh hi! Well look, we're doing Telecaster refretting, and this is the neck that I completely reshaped. Actually, this is the former Korean Squier, and it started out as an 18+ inch radius, which was just ridiculous. Now I've re-radiused it, and I thinned it down by about 1 centimeter down here, completely thinned it down, and I've hand lacquered it with poly, rub-on poly, and it's not perfect at all, but you know what, it's fine. It's really nice, it does the job, and it looks kind of vintagey, and I'm quite happy with it. It feels great. I mean, that's the main thing. You know, this feeling here is beautiful and slim, and it's curved, and the edges are nice and whatever. So like I said, not perfect, but darn good enough to be getting on with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fly straight on into this. I've got tons of wiring things to do today as well. So I'm just kind of line myself up a bit of clean up clothings and get stuck in. And I'm going to be doing now. Right, I was going to be doing super glue and, you know, holding it down with this. Now this thing here is broken, and I was just wondering whether I bought another thing, which is a bit on the chunky side, but with a bit of luck we might just be able to get it to work. It's going to sit down to there, but it's probably a bit long and I need something mounted at the bottom, so I may have to just modify that another day. But anyway, so the fun begins here. So what I've got is, I had a choice when I did this. I didn't really know how it's going to turn out at all. Full stop, period, as they say. So what I aimed to do, I'm just going to put a little bit either side of the tang. That's what I'm going to do here. So what my intention was with the refret was, sorry, with the reshape and refret, was to just I didn't really know whether it was better to refret first and then lacquer and kind of lacquer over the top of the frets. This is obviously a possibility. Or to do the lacquering first and then come in and do the refret on top of the lacquering, which is obviously a different approach. So I've gone for the latter, and what I'm seeing here is this isn't, not sure if that's going all the way down. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to put it under its pressure, and then we'll take a look, and if it isn't any good, then I will junk it and we'll start again. See if I can get down to this point. It's probably going to snap this at some point, but I wanted it under a fair bit of tension. Then while I'm at it, I get me a clean up cloth, and probably a plasticky, more of a plasticky thing would be good here. And I'm just going to go in the sides and pull out any obvious glue that's stuck out, which I suspect would be hardly any in this case. Now this radius is just slightly under 9.25, so it's a little tighter than 9.25. Sorry, 9.5. And actually, what I recognise I'm doing here is I'm pressing with a 9.5 radius insert. Now that looks pretty good actually. It handles that difference pretty well. I mean, I've got a load of overhang here. I wasn't aiming to be particularly tight with the or stingy with the fret wire this time. These are all kind of the last of my StewMac jumbo. Actually, the last of it is on the wall up there. I've got one set. I went and collected together all my offcuts from previous jobs of jumbo wire. So now I've got me a nice set. Okay, yeah, that sat down really well, and actually, you know, while there's some little crunchy edges to the cutting, that was a big question really for me, was, you know, is it possible once you've lacquered this and got it fairly smooth, which is, you can see it's a hand done job, so it's not, you know, it's not machine finished, but the question was, can I cut the slots without massacring the lacquer, and it's done a reasonable job. I won't say it's perfect at all, but it isn't too bad. So I'm going to kind of go with the next one now, and that seemed to seat pretty well. So I'm going, technique is to go along all the way, if I can help it, right the way along the edge of the tang, obviously including this overhang bit here as well, so there's plenty left over, but it doesn't hurt to reach right to the end of it. And then put it back in, line it up as well as we can, scrunch it in, and then give it a sort of lockdown. As I said, I'm conscious that I'm clamping with something that's a little under the actual radius, or sorry, a little over the actual radius I'm using, but it isn't so bad. It's not a problem. And then with this spiky plastic thing and a bit of towel, I'm just picking up anything that's obviously glooped out over the edge, and just grab any. It's actually hardly any coming out, so it seems pretty effective that it's just sticking on the underside. This is never going to be perfect, but this is a second-hand guitar with I don't know if you can see, it's got a plate that's unique to this guitar in size, so I've ended up cutting tape and putting black Gorilla Tape over it, so because there's no way I'm going to find a matching black bridge. It just isn't going to happen. The other thing, of course, I've got to be a bit careful. That was okay. Careful not to overstress this, because this lacquer is more brittle than nitrocellulose, and it's a possibility of it cracking if I'm not careful. But actually, I've really enjoyed working with this this stuff indoors. This what do you call it? Minwax stuff, poly, rub-on poly. You know, I've been trying different approaches to it, and you know, there's lots of, you can either rub it on, or you can paint it on if you're feeling adventurous, and then kind of flat it off and paint a bit more, or rub a bit more, and you can mix techniques, and I've done lots of different approaches to it, and overall I've been pretty impressed with it. And my first attempts weren't very encouraging from my perspective, but I just didn't see it working very well. But since I decided to take it inside in the house and work on it, you know, every time I pass the table, you know, after 5 minutes of drying, just give it another zap of lacquer, and eventually, you know, you can, if you kind of do that progressively all the way through the day, you can actually build up a pretty good coat, and it's not that slow. I had originally thought it would take weeks to get any sort of build up, but actually it's a matter of a couple of days. Now this isn't particularly flat because I haven't gone so far. You know, you might have to go a millimetre thick to give yourself a good 0.25 of a millimetre of flattening before you kind of level out and you've got an absolute mirror finish. And I haven't gone for that because you know, I've only gone for about 1/2 mil thick, I'm guessing. But if I went down any flatter, I'd be in danger of hitting the decal. And to be honest, it's not really about mirror finish. This is not a factory guitar. This is a there's my super glue. This is a homemade rescue guitar from, you know, heading for the skip kind of guitar. So you know, the fact that it feels nice, it's down to a unique custom profile I really like, you know. And that's what it's about. So long as it feels great and plays great, that's all I care about. I don't really care about the shine. So anyway, look, you can see that's going in pretty nicely. So the plan so far appears to be working. I got my radio on in the background, just quiet enough so that I don't have to pay. But hopefully, by performing rights, no, it's only speech radio anyway. But even still, I guess it's technically somebody's content, but I can't really hear what they're saying. It's just a bit less than silence. I've been having an interesting few days guitar-wise. I sold my one of my 2 double cut oak casters, which was a great moment for me. I mean, a real honour to be able to, you know, somebody else to own one and play one. And what's nice is I've kept one of the double cuts for me, and I play that, and it's hanging up right here at the moment because behind me, because I'm just about to hook up this fantastic rail hammer pickup. Now I've got to replace I messed up one of the pots, so I've got to just rewire that with another one, but hooking up the rail hammer to it. So that's going to be done today, and then I can play that, and I've just been enjoying playing that as my sort of rehearsing guitar. So there's me and one other out there in the world who own double cut oak casters, so it's a small and perfectly formed club, I guess. So that's great. That's a real thrill, and you know, those who know me at all will know that I was absolutely nerve-wracked in the lead up to, well, after selling it, because you know, I know what goes into it, and you know, but there's always a, you know, every artist, maker, seller, craftsman, you name it, whatever you call them, everybody's has some nervousness about whether their people who buy their stuff will really like it or not. And so I was thrilled to get some really good feedback, and I could breathe again. And the owner, Daniel, said his feedback said he liked this guitar better than his Gibson Les Paul, which I'd like to say was a great compliment in one sense, but actually I do know the sort of current state of quality control issues that I've heard people having with Gibson Les Paul. So in a way, it probably, you know, knowing what I know about what it takes to set up a basic guitar, and the fact that a lot of Gibsons apparently don't seem to have that on board, then I'm not surprised. But it is it's great that he was happy with it. So right now there's that, and then in the last week or so, I've been doing a few setups. I'm probably going to go and upload these videos coming Monday. So it's been a couple of weeks, as always, between you know, video uploads. But I had set up a couple of vintages, actually, one after another. A Thomas Blug vintage, and after that, or at the same time as that, Ed's V6 Stratocaster style, and you know, both of those went really well. The Thomas Blug was very difficult, and you may see that if you watch that video. Actually, quite challenging from a setup perspective, because it's a 7.25 vintage radius guitar, and as a result bends become very, very difficult to do, particularly at any kind of low action. And those 7.25 radius guitars just weren't built for bending notes. That's a simple fact. And there's a limit to what you can do, and that limit is kind of above my normal target playing action, so it challenged me a bit. I didn't feel great about that. And you know, I sent that back a little nervous about how the owner would find it, and he was very happy with it, and I'm, you know, pleased to say. But you know, I'm a perfectionist, and I wanted it to be my usual ultra low. But I guess, you know, I had to learn the lesson there that there is a limitation, a physical kind of the laws of physics limitation that applies to a 7.25 radius. That because it's so curved, you just cannot achieve big bends beyond a certain point. You can't. It ceases to be about fret leveling after a certain point. It's just the geometry of the curve in the neck doesn't permit you to make huge bends up to the centre line and beyond. So anyway, there was those two vintages, and then I sent back. I don't know where it's gone. Oh, I sent back Martin's version of this, the Encore Pearl Sparkle Strat, and that's gone back to Germany. And now, oh, and I sold Sun Mustang red one that I had last year, if you remember, the one that was kind of completely filthed up with super glue, and that went off to a guy in Germany as well, off to Simon. And so now I've got left these kind of my Telecaster to electrically hook up, and then I've got two more Sun Mustang Strats, custom Strats to make, and one is a straight set of vintage voiced Wilkinson single coils with some really nice pots and switches on it, and the other one is a custom job of three Jailhouse 2 rails from Iron Gear, and these are hooked up with a coil split. So that's got to be something else. Yeah. Now where's the what did I do? Did I put that together again? Yeah, I did. So where's the neck from that one? It's here. I drilled that out yesterday. So that neck. This is also a. No, it's not the right neck. Oh, this is the red one's neck. That's the natural shape of it. This is the cream sparkle neck, and this is one that I reshaped and slimmed down myself and put a new truss rod in because the truss rod was broken, and fully refretted. So it's a custom shape as well, and that's going to go on the sparkle thing with the rails. So it's all some stuff needs wiping off the back. It's all go. So two great Strats, and this fantastic old Tele, which you can see having completely refretted, completely reshaped the neck on that, from really horrible Squier neck. I mean, this thing was just revolting. I've never seen a nastier neck on a Squier, and it was a Squier Korea, which was really bizarre. And I've searched high and low, and I cannot find any evidence of an 18-inch radius on any Squier guitar. So what on earth? This, how, when, how, what? Who knows? Who knows what it was or how it got to be 18-inch radius, but I can't tell you. Anyway, what I certainly know is that it's not what I wanted to play on, hence the complete reshape of the guitar itself, the neck, and while I was at it, reshape and refret. So it's a completely different thing. And of course I was modelling the profile of this neck on that lovely maple neck that I've got on my red, extra special red Strat indoors. And this neck of course didn't come with this guitar. That was this thing here, which I'm saving for some other day. I'm not really saving, it's not that great, but this again is about 15-inch flat radius as well, or 14-15 inch. So it was pretty horrible. It was also a great big club. It was the same thickness all the way down as the heel. So I've obviously, just for fun, reshaped this a little bit, thinking maybe refret it or re-radius it. But I also, while I was at it, I changed it from the horrible vintage headstock shape, or vintage Encore headstock shape, which I've got here as a spare one. From that shape, I was able to cut out a Tele style headstock. Now it's not as fat. Obviously the amount of room in there is minimal, so you couldn't get a completely full fat Telecaster headstock out of it, but it isn't so bad, you know. And come someday when a body turns up, it might actually prove to be not half bad neck for reuse. But you know, you never knows. Ah, that hurt. Okay, so this is good. This is doing without any glue. There's a tiny bit of a little bit of scuffing on the lacquer from where the fret saw went across, but apart from that, in very good shape. There's cocktail sticks by the millions for my gluing games, but anyway. So that's that. I've just been busy and, you know, getting some great reviews. Thank you for those of you who've reviewed my services on Facebook. I really appreciate it. It's been, you know, you can imagine how rewarding it is to see a really positive review appear without kind of requesting it really, and you know, to hear somebody's feeling of how you've helped them or helped them with their guitar. It's just great. So thank you for taking the time to do that. It's very much appreciated. I made a mistake exactly, but I rarely watch other luthier guitar channels, partly because I just don't have time really, and also in another way because I'm pretty happy with the method that I've got. I don't need to go and sort of seek out any new things at the moment. I mean, obviously I do now and then. Sometimes I go and research something to find out what the hell's going on. But I did see something pop up, and I saw Will's Easy Guitar, and I just it was one of those things that makes you go and look, because he goes, last episode ever, goodbye, this sucks, I'm out of here type of message. So I kind of went along and had a look, and I haven't really got any critique of the guy or what he says or does. I don't really know his channel. I've never spent time watching it, but you know, what he presented was a very hurt and upset 30-minute episode, in which he kind of swears a lot to express his kind of feeling of let down and not being supported. Actually, worse than not being supported, being actively undermined by some people who've made a decision to sort of, I don't know, ruin his business or whatever, for whatever motivations. So it's quite a sort of long explanation of all of that, and I started off kind of feeling, well, the comments were disabled, but my instinct was to go, oh, don't do this, don't, please, you know, just if you're going to not do any more, if it's hurt your feelings or you're not feeling great about doing YouTube, just get off it, but don't explain and stuff. And then I kind of watched it a bit more, and I suppose one of the things, I'm not going to say I sympathise with the guy, because I can tell from his style, it feels like a style that would quite easily create antagonism. You know, people will go, my uncompromising, you know, I pull no punches approach. Well, when you describe yourself like that, you're probably going to invite what the YouTube does best, which is fight. And so he seems to have, he seems to have got that, and it's made a mess and made him unhappy. But the thing, so I kind of watched it, and by the end of it, I felt kind of sorry for him in a way, because it was clear that his business model isn't working at all, and he was not only unhappy with the people who were trying to undermine him, understandably, very angry with it, but he was also seemed to be drowning under a load of, you know, the volume of work. and not making ends meet financially, and so on and so on. And so, you know, I kind of lost my judgment a bit, and, you know, because I can empathise, it's not always easy. And, you know, and I think the thing I really did recognise and what he talked about was just that whole thing of how quickly the internet can become something that just depresses you. And of course he talked openly in his video about suffering from depression, medical or, you know, mental health or depression issues. And, you know, I could say straight out that if somebody came to me and said, look, I'm thinking of running a YouTube video where I, you know, unbox this, or I show how to do that, and I knew that person had, you know, issues with depression, I would go, don't do it, do not do it, this is not a good idea. It's not a kind environment, it's not one that's going to nurture you in any way or form. And in fact, it's probably going to feed and add into and amplify any depression you have. But, you know, it seems like Will's struggled with depression, and sadly, you know, the role of YouTube has been to kind of worsen that. And I just totally understand it. And, you know, I've dealt with, as I've often referred to in videos, you know, you can't do anything on video and YouTube without having run across people who, you know, occasionally appear to get very nasty in words and seem like they're looking to ruin your day. And actually, if you have to be really honest with yourself whether you can deal with that or not. And my dealing with it is, first of all, it's very low, because partly I feel I have an expectation. A couple of things. One is I don't seek out conflict. Second one is I don't tolerate abuse, and, you know, I'm quite clear if somebody's abusive, I just hide the content. It doesn't matter to me. I don't like it. It makes me feel bad for a second. Why somebody being like that? But I now don't dwell on it, which I think sounds like Will probably may have had a problem with as well. Or if he didn't, it doesn't help when you're struggling with other things. Anyway, so yeah, but it's not for everybody to put stuff out. And if you're, particularly if, I'm not saying this is true of Will, but if anybody who's out looking for approval in any sort of way, it really is probably a disaster in the waiting, because you know, if your self-esteem is dependent on getting good strokes from people, then this isn't the place, and YouTube is not the place to base, you know, your search on, or to center your search on. It is just, you're going to come off worse. So I just, you know, I'm sorry to hear that about how he felt about his, you know, how his business model wasn't working and stuff. And I have to say, it was pretty evident, you know, if you, I think he counted up 40 jobs simultaneously in his room, 40 guitars. So, you know, he was supposed to be either repairing, building, or whatever, and 40 guitars, and he was struggling under the load of doing them, and disappointing customers, and not meeting deadlines, but also, you know, fighting off cruel, unkind, undermining attacks as well. And it's just, you know, I've got 3 guitars I'm setting up in here that I'm to sell. That's all I'm doing at any one time for selling. I know how many guitars it is good for me to do and sell. I know when, you know, I know why it's good to do it, and it isn't particularly about money. It's about content, video content. It's about having 1 or 2 things out in an eBay marketplace, etc., etc. So it's not the important part. But the important thing for me is to know not to have too many. So there are days, like a couple of days ago, I was looking on eBay thinking, oh, shall I have a look for a, you know, and you find something and you see something, you think, oh, that would be nice to tweak and do and whatever. And then I just have to say to myself, wait a minute, I've got 3 on the go here, courtesy of Ed, who part exchanged them. I've got these 3 great Indian vintage Encores, whatever. Do I need any more on my eBay shelf? No, I don't. I've got some of my Oakcasters up for sale. I've got some other guitars up for sale, and I've got these 3 coming through. I don't need to buy any more, and I particularly don't need to buy any more because there's a lot of risk involved in buying, setting up and selling. Sorry, it's not a lot of risk, but there is relatively more risk than there is doing customer setups via courier or face-to-face, people bringing them. So it's just about knowing which mode of engagement works best, or knowing the relative place of each. So yes, it's good for me to have some guitars coming through. No, it's not good to have loads, and it's a certain percentage of what I do, but no more than that. And I just I felt sorry for Will, that I think whatever his model was, it hasn't proved good for him, and it's left him feeling hugely under pressure, to the point that he has to ask for Patreon support, which is kind of great. People, there's a lot of good people who, when they feel your pain, will help you out and stuff. But I mean, kind of crowdfunding stroke Patreon support as a way of funding stuff is okay, I suppose, but I don't know, maybe it'll work, I don't know. I hope it does for him. Anyway, it was a very funny journey watching somebody else doing stuff like this, but having a really tough time with it. Where I've had a tough time, it's because there's one simple reason, and that's because I've had the luxury of growing what I do, or growing my reputation organically by word of mouth, and as a result, I don't have a tight grip on the amount of work that comes through. It's improving, and it's enough at the moment for me, but or it's a nice kind of level. But that's the only times when it's been difficult is when I've not had quite the amount of work that I want coming through. Oh, here comes Claire with a cup of tea.
Like a white cat eating the chicken.
Oh right, is that what Sid was
Probably.
whimpering at?
The hospital phone.
Oh, we're on video, so don't tell any.
No, don't
tell them about the pregnancy. Oh, what? Or my results.
MRI.
Oh yeah.
On Tuesday at midday.
Uh-huh.
Can you take me?
I sure can.
Thanks. How's it going?
Yeah, it's good. This I cut the slots on this, and I was kind of worried about how crappy it would make the finish. It's not that bad. It's a little bit rough at the edges.
Well, you smooth that out there, I think.
Yeah.
If I know you.
I can't even reach. I can reach, and it's going to go ping. Damn, I can't. I'll just hold on to it. Yeah, I've just conveniently used up the last of my vintage jumbo stuff.
Oh yeah.
I've sort of had to use loads of bits to make. I've got enough for 2 guitars, which is.
You cut them into bits anyway, don't you?
Yeah, but I mean, I had just loads of offcuts from
Right.
different previous jobs, but it was just enough to do this guitar and
Looks like a railway track.
that red one, wherever that is. Yeah, and I've got this. I don't know what that is, but it's a spare set.
It looks like a bird pooped on your shoulder.
Mm.
I've got to go
Okay.
to sleep now.
All right, I'll see you later.
Okay.
You know where I'll be.
I do.
Thanks for my tea.
Lots of bulbs out here.
Yeah, have you beaten Sid up and made sure he hasn't sprayed on that dustbin again?
No, I haven't seen them.
Tell him I'll kill him if I see it.
Sulking somewhere.
He was crying a bit earlier, but maybe that was because he was under attack from the
Yeah.
other cat. See you in a bit.
Wait.
My poor missus. Never very well. She had cancer shortly after I met her. So it was a bit of a kind of first initial relationship challenge. It was, hello, you want to go out with me? Bam, diagnosis. So we've been together ever since, and she got the best possible outcome. Diagnosis, prognosis is the thing. She had the whole chemo thing and all of that malarkey. Anyway, but the downside is is that chemo seems to half kill all the good cells, and it does all kinds of other things. Whilst it keeps you alive, it ends up kind of knackering you quite a bit. Nice English word there. So she's struggled ever since, really. See if I can just hold this in. Well, that ain't going to work, is it? Not unless I attach that to that. Yeah, anyway, so she now has difficulty with ME, which is that what's it called? Anyway, chronic fatigue syndrome, partly as a result of the chemo, and so really struggles to stay awake for too long. Hence, when you see her come in, she often brings me a cup of tea and then announces she's going to sleep, and it's only, well, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so she'll get an hour's sleep, or 2 hours sleep now, and then she won't have very good sleep all night long. I think that thing's going to burst any minute. I'm trying to get as much force on it as I can. That's enough to keep that thing clamped, but I think I probably ought to rethink this. That's how I ought to think I ought to do it. Anyway, so yeah, it's funny. I wish Will the best, and I think one of the things that made me realise is that how the hell am I going to undo this? It made me realise that, you know, I made a decision when I started doing this, partly because it's the way I am anyway, but I was never going to be confrontational or, the kind of, I'm never going to make videos of the kind that would get people's backs up. I mean, they do anyway, they do whether you like it or not, but you know, and I know quite a lot of characters on YouTube kind of enjoy, you know, they enjoy this sort of cut and thrust of kicking off arguments and whatnot, and a lot of their hits on their channels and so on. A lot of people who are, I'm not saying Will is the same case, but there are a lot of people who kind of go after viewer numbers or hits or clicks or whatever, because, you know, for a lot of people that's seen as what makes success on eBay. eBay? Yeah, YouTube. You know, and actually that was never a strategy of mine, and the reason being is, you know, I never intended to go for advertising or anything like that. It wasn't the point. The point of Reloved Guitars videos was just it sounds not much, but it was specifically to allow potential buyer or person bringing me their guitar to see what I do and be confident in whatever. And either, you know, if they liked it, they would pay me to do it, or if they didn't like it, they wouldn't, and that would be the end of it. I'm just trying to work out how to get a little loop in here just to make this work. A bit too tight. Anyway, so the point was that since it was never about views, I never had to sort of court controversy and go after sort of contentious things. And actually, some of the ones that I've got most hits for, I wish I hadn't or never wanted to. This isn't great, but it will do. For example, the videos about Chibsons. That was never. I just did it because a customer brought me one, and it was a Chibson, so I said Chibson in the title, and then of course I get loads of people interested, not only in Chibsons but in the arguments about Chibsons, and then lo and behold, that one's attracted probably not most, but some of the small amount of abuse that I've got in my time doing this. You know, and actually, this interesting bit is that I think sometimes the posters or the commenters make the mistake of thinking I give a damn particularly about the whole issue of Chibsons anyway. You know, I'm doing it because a customer asked me to make it play as good as they can, not because I ethically and morally, spiritually support Chibsons or hate Gibson or want to bring down the American guitar industry or da-da-da-da-da. You know, so the ones that are probably most popular are for all the wrong reasons anyway. But yeah, I started from the very beginning. I started out deliberately intending not to court controversy. I didn't want to argue with anyone. Not least because I don't think I'm right about issues all the time, and I don't want to be, I don't get a kick out of being right, even if I am. The only reason for me to be right about something is to achieve what I'm setting out to achieve. And if I can make the guitar play and make somebody happy, then that's the only basis on which it matters to be right. It's right for that person and that guitar. But of course, as you all know, there are a lot of people online who seek out being right for other kinds of payoffs or other kinds of motivations. Anyway, so that was my little trip down the kind of real life of the internet world. Sort of, yeah, it reminded me, actually, it confirmed my approach actually a little bit. It validated my own approach, which is, you know, very much about, I often use the word in my experience, you know, I'll preface something with that, you know, and I'll say for me, and it's important that I do, because if I'm saying this method works or this approach works, I'm saying for me this is an effective way of doing something. It might not be for you, and that's absolutely fine, but for me, I have discovered in my experience, blah 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 blah, you know, and people, you know, like, so for example, in my ebook I talk about you know, what are some of the best guitars to set up, and I talk about the SG, for example. But it's for me, you know. I have found for me the SG is the one I prefer or enjoy setting up. Is it the best guitar in the world? No, yes, no. For some people it is. I guess Angus Young thought it was. I guess Tony Iommi, was it? Yeah, liked it. Frank Zappa, didn't he play one? I don't know. But anyway, you know, is it the best guitar? I don't care. In my experience, is it the easiest? One of the easiest to set up? Yep. And the thing about when you say your experience, of course, is it should be, and if anyone was reasonable, it should be kind of incontrovertible. When you're saying my experience, you're saying just for me. It may not be true for you, which is absolutely fine. Anyway, so we are coming towards, as you can see, the fun end of this thing, and I'm kind of using the evil power of superglue to seat these things, but also just to help them adhere to the surface of the lacquer, which is nice and relatively smooth. And it doesn't hurt, it's just going to keep these things tacked in. Now, I made the decision on this guitar to go with the complete through cut slot, which means I have, and just clamp this down as I usually do, which means I didn't go for treating it as if there was some sort of little end you know, binding or nibs or end bits. I just went and cut all the way through. I wanted this frets more than anything else to seat properly, and also because the Strat I've got indoors, that I love so much, is also quite rustically fretted in that the metal bits come to the edge, and I don't mind that actually. I think it has a you know, a homemade look to it. What matters to me is how it feels and how it plays, and I think, you know, I want to get that. I want these frets seated properly, which, preserving a sort of binding, makes that whole aspect a little bit difficult, or a bit tougher. So you can see that I don't have to spend too long, and I'm now coming into the last two frets. As I was cutting these slots, the saw, or the fret file the slot file that I'd started cutting with just wandered a little bit at the far end, so it wasn't quite the straightest line, but I sort of dug them out a little bit to correct that, so hopefully these frets will be as near damn it straight compared to, they look pretty good. For a second it had me worried that I was going to end up with some slightly not parallel frets towards the end here. Okay, so you can see how fun this is. I mean, you could tap these things in, there'd be no problem at all. You could compress them with, you can buy quite expensive, but you can buy the hand clamps, do one fret at a time. But this thing, I can't remember how much it costs now, but it's an invaluable thing, and it lives on a great big chunk of hardwood with a big chunky vise on the other end, so I can, depending on what I'm doing, I just spin this round, as you've seen, and if I need the vise to cut a bone nut, I'll spin it. Pardon me. I guess I'm showing all of this because I haven't been on video for a while, and partly also because it's quite good to see how quick stroke long it can be to do it, providing you're sort of prepared and have everything lined up ready. Okay, so that is the last fret going in. They all look and feel pretty good. Just making sure there's support of the caul under there as I go for the final cramp down. Okay, that is it done. Now what I'm going to do next for now is snip off the ends. I've got a load of soldering to do, which I think I ought to not put off, but I do. I might have to go and get some bits. But yeah, I've got these two lovely Encore strats to do, and this telly, which is again also waiting to be wired, basically wired to the control plate, which is over there. I've got a Chinese control plate, and this is obviously a Bitzer from all over, but it's got nice pickups in it. These are Wilkinson sort of top gold thingies, I don't know whatever they call them, but yeah, nice quality vintage Alnico pickups. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here because technically I should do another fret job right now since it's there. Okay, so what we've got jumbo frets. Is that seated properly? I'm looking at that very last one. Yes, it is. It's just a bit of glue sticking up, which I need to remove. Donald Trump on the radio, guess what? Sorry if you're a Trump fan. Okay, so there, look, we have it. Everything stuck down. Beautiful profile neck. Catch that spanner. I don't know why I keep it. I never use spanners anymore. Taking up valuable space. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to lose the extra long bits that don't need to be on there. And I'm doing it kind of downwards to make sure it doesn't pull up the ends any. I get a nice floor full of bits to hoover up later. Vacuum, I should say. These tools, this kind of tool, has lasted pretty well. This tool has lasted pretty well, but those tools are the kind of tools that will pretty much wear out if you end up doing stainless, and they're starting to wear anyway, because I guess they can only last for so long. But stainless will dig holes in these, so kind of. So far I've turned down requests for stainless steel frets. I also think it's a solution without a real problem. The thing about stainless is it's a trade-off. If you want stainless frets, you're going to go through more strings, and you're going to get charged a fortune because it's going to kill the luthier's tools by all accounts. I'm not speaking from experience, I'm just saying that's what I've heard. So it's going to cost you more in strings, and it's going to cost you more in putting them in the first place, because the luthier supposedly has to buy new tools. If you went stainless steel strings and stainless steel frets, then it's going to cost you more because of the luthier's tools, and they're going to wear at the same sort of rate, but it's going to cost you more to buy the strings and more to refret in the future, and so and the question is, you know, do you get, if you get 10 years out of a set of frets, if you get as little as 10 years, you know, it's not a huge expense once every 10 years to have a refret and you know, lots of nice nice new jumbos put in. Okay, well, I'm just looking at this, homemade, home shaped. It's not perfect, but you know what? It's going to feel like a vintage custom guitar lived in, and then that's what it is. It's home shaped, home sculpted, completely individual shape. There's not another one like it, and it's as delicate as anything, with nice big chunky frets. And then I'm going to let this dry for a bit, but then obviously the next step is to edge those frets off. But yeah, a picture. No, I won't, because it will interfere with that. Okay, so that's that one. I'm going to switch the camera off in a second, but we're in the same game here. Time to cut some frets for this baby. It's pretty much ready to go. In fact, I've got the frets here. Jumbos, and the same game. Let's just see if they actually sit in all right. Yeah, they just drop right in. And this also will be a 9. Is this 9.5? I think it's a 9.5. I hope it is. Yeah, it's just a tiny fraction under, but it's good. There you go. So I'm just going to get on and press all this stuff off camera. What am I off? No, I better start and redo it. See you in a minute. Okay, so look, we're here to put on some tuners on this Telecaster style guitar. This is interesting. This is a slightly different headstock, and I think these tuners will work with this. They're just about big enough, far enough apart to work. The 19:1 ratio, which is why I like them. So they are sort of the quality business. I'm just going to drop them all in first of all, and then the varying degrees of tightness because of the kind of lacquer that's gone into the tuner holes along the way. And I've sort of cleaned it out mostly, but in some cases not completely, but feels like they're fitting nicely. So I'll just line them all up first and then drill some pilot holes for the tuner screws. It's just, I think we are just within, they're just small enough. If they didn't work, we'd have to go to a smaller set, the button ones, but it's kind of difficult to get the button ones in the 19:1 ratio, I find. So let me just lightly tighten these up end to end, and we'll see what we got. These are also the easy lock ones, although I tend these days not to use the easy lock functionality. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, these are just about okay spacing. They're about 1 millimetre or 2 in total between them, which is close, but it works. So we'll just get them all tightened a little bit and then push them around until they're in place. Okay, I also, just before this, I did a little bit of tailoring of the pick guard for this guitar, because it's got to, I've got to get that exactly right. I think it's right at the moment, so we're going to be in a position to put it on shortly. And then I'll just make sure that one's in line too, which it is. And tighten that. I'll just go back over them quickly. This one sits a little bit on a curve, so it's not the easiest of ones to get to stay put. Weeks, come here. But we've got, the main thing is to make sure there's clearance between them. That's what I'm really aiming for. And of course the screw will help us take care of the last bit. So there we are. all lined up, all able to turn. There's clearance between them all. Perhaps just a little tiny bit more on that one and that one. So now it would be a case of getting a little fine thingy, drill bit, and just enough to get a starter hole for these screws, so it really is, we are talking very fine here, small. And you don't want them, it's quite a difficult thing getting it just right. If you go too small, we end up sort of having to dig too hard with the screwdriver, or work too hard with the screwdriver. If we go too small, then too small, we have to work too hard with the screwdriver, and too big, obviously it won't grip. So we could do it purely by measurement. I'm doing it by eye at the moment. I think that's probably quite a good start point. Let's see what we've got. We've got a little measurer zeroed. So approximately 2 at that end, 1.4. So that's good. We want a bit of bite, so we're just about on the right sort of sizing there. So this is pretty much straightforward. We know that tuners are in position. I've made sure of that first. So what I can do is just literally go in here. Okay, these have got some holes already nearby in some of them. Okay, these already have some holes which are just slightly to one side, so they may actually work as is. So let's give it a go. I'm waiting to put some beautiful Fender brushed steel tuners onto the red Strat in a minute, which is, they're going to look so cool, but I'm just tidying up the headstock on that one first. Now we've got birds going crazy outside. What I don't want to do with these is, I'm not sure I want to turn them to meet these holes exactly, but they are quite close, so it might make sense to do that rather than digging any further down. I mean, the holding is done mainly by the nut on the other side, so if we go in with this until it's tightened up and we stop, then we have a look at the position. As long as they've got that distance, can we match the holes? And I think we actually can. This probably makes more sense. It's just tilting a tiny bit further from where I want it to be, but that isn't bad at all. Better to use the existing drill holes, and then we'll just go back the other side and tighten up. Then after that it's a case of, we can either put the neck on now and then do the wiring afterwards. It probably makes more sense to do the hookup wiring first and test that before we put the neck on, because obviously when we put the neck on, the guitar gets bigger and harder to work on in some ways. Yeah, 19:1 tuners, very good. Now I've just while I was doing this, I've just filled the old holes in this heel with some liquid metal putty stuff. It's easier, providing there's enough room next to it to drill the new holes without falling into the old holes, like at this end, then it makes sense to do that. All we're doing is we're just filling in a hole and making it part of the surrounding wood, because the alternative is to drill out quite a lot bigger hole, and actually the truth is I've only got pine dowel at the moment that's of the right size, so that's a bit of a softwood for making an anchor point. So I think I'd rather leave the maple, kind of leave the screws go into maple, and I've filled the holes with this metal putty stuff, which will just solidify and just stabilize it really. Okay, so look, there's There's our 19:1 tuners. Not loads of room between them, but it puts some of the weight back that the neck has lost in terms of its thinness, and it makes it a really nice smooth tuning experience, which is what I really wanted. Now, because we're going on to relatively fresh lacquer here, this will probably take a few weeks even to fully settle down, and we may find that we want to we may find that we might need to tighten them up later on, which is quite common at a next string change. There we go, all good. So that's our home shaped carved neck, all completely unique, and we've got refret, home done refret, ready to go. We've got a nut slot that needs cleaning out because at the moment it's a bit gunged up with lacquer, because that's how I did it. But yeah, we're ready to go, and that's ready to go onto the body. Like I said before, it's not the smoothest or flattest of jobs in the world, but that's not the point. Everything about this is a little bit non-standard, and I'm quite happy with that. It's a rescue dog of a guitar, and my intention is to make it play the best it can. Okay, so while I'm just at it, I think I'd better. What I ought to do? I ought to probably stop things and switch back to this video. So by a miracle of modern camera work,